So tell me something there, Weeb Army. What do you get when you throw together a post-apocalyptic Japan, weird animal-machine hybrids used for combat, and a foul-tempered archer with a penchant for fungus who's colloquially called a mushroom terrorist? You get one of the outright weirdest anime that I've ever fucking seen, and I've seen some shit. So, I am the Goblin King, and the anime I'm bringing you all this week is definitely one of the strangest anime I've ever witnessed, and it's called Sabikui Bisco, which I have been informed means Rust Eater Bisco. Sabikui Bisco is set in a post-apocalyptic Japan in some indeterminate time after a strange weapon exploded in the middle of Tokyo and basically wiped out the country and turned it into a vast, mostly desert hellscape. The land is swept by what is called the rust wind, which is another indeterminate thing which spread a disease called rust, which can affect literally anything from inanimate objects to trees and other plants to animals and humans, basically slowly corroding them down into a rust-colored dust. It is believed by the inhabitants of these lands that the rust is spread through mushroom spores. Therefore, mushrooms are a contraband material, and possessing or growing mushrooms is a criminal act. The anime follows Bisco Akaboshi, a so-called mushroom keeper and archer whose arrows can instantly grow mushrooms wherever they're fired. He is a wanted criminal and mushroom terrorist. He eventually meets and teams up with Milo Negoyanagi, a young doctor seeking to find a cure for the rust. The anime chronicles their adventures as they, along with Bisco's giant crab, Akutagawa, search the wastelands that were once Japan for the nigh-mythical Sabikui mushroom that is claimed to devour all forms of rust. Bisco Akaboshi is a young mushroom keeper known among the general populace as the man-eating mushroom. It's said that he's a mushroom terrorist who destroys whole towns and maliciously spreads the dreaded rust. Also, apparently he eats people, because of course he does. When the anime opens, he's teamed up with Jabi, his mentor and trainer, and is mostly a foul-tempered and foul-mouthed brat, desperately trying to cross Japan in his search for the legendary mushroom in order to cure Jabi, who has contracted the rust. Despite his crusty exterior, Bisco is shown to be a mostly good kid and incredibly loyal to his friends, whom he generally considers to be his family. He is also a hellion of a fighter and a godlike archer, and is said to be among the greatest of the mushroom keepers. Milo Negoyanagi is another youngster and apparently a prodigy in the field of medicine who, despite his young age, runs his own medical clinic in one of the few cities left. He's called Dr. Panda by most of the residents due to his overall pale complexion and the unusual dark spot over his left eye. He's an overall sweet-natured and generous young man who often treats the residents of his district for little to no form of compensation. Up until the point he meets Bisco, he's conducting illicit research into the medicinal properties of mushrooms in the hope of finding a cure for the rust, which his beloved sister contracted at some point before the anime starts. He begins training in the Mushroom Keeper's battle tactics and archery. Though he can't keep up physically, his quick mind makes up for that drawback by modifying his own arrows with different combinations of mushroom spores and other chemicals to create different effects, i.e. trick arrows. Jabi is Bisco's mentor and nominal father figure. He is an old mushroom keeper who trained Bisco in the ways of the keepers, training him how to fight and in archery, and teaching him about the properties of the various mushrooms and the lore of their keepers. He is an irascible and lively old man who, despite his advanced stage of rust, insists on doing anything and everything he can to assist Bisco in his quest, including lending a hand in battle or infiltrating enemy territory. Pawu Negoyanagi is Milo's older sister. Much like Jabi, she is also suffering from an advanced stage of rust and is the reason for Milo joining Bisco on his quest for the legendary fungus. She is the captain of the Imihama Watch, who are tasked with defending their city from the so-called mushroom terrorists. As such, and almost to spite her physical beauty, she possesses amazing fighting abilities and massive physical prowess, especially when wielding her weapon of choice, a big metal club. She is much like Bisco in temperament, being stubborn and foul-tempered, yet she cares for her little brother to the point of distraction, even going so far as to chase after him on his quest when she believes that Bisco has kidnapped him. Teruel Ochagama is a strange little mercenary girl who, for the first few episodes, never told anyone her name, only referring to herself as Jellyfish due to her hairstyle. She's first introduced working for the main villain of the show as one of his elite squadron. However, when she fails to kill Bisco as promised, she is subsequently fired and continues her work as a traveling merchant. She is sly and conniving and has a lot of trust issues, obviously, though she very much lives up to her mercenary moniker. As I've now stated multiple times already through this interview, this anime was fucking weird. It wasn't really surreal the way something like Fooly Cooly was. It was legitimately just balls to the wall fucking bizarre. It seemed like nearly every mode of transportation or vehicle of war was some form of animal-machine hybrid. You had snails fused with bombers, attack hippo tanks, a giant shrimp that was fused with a literal temple made of spare tanks. Yes, that was a thing. A giant bipolar intelligent crab, a mortar that was a big pink elephant. I know there are even some that I'm forgetting right now. That also doesn't include the other random weirdness like the cyborg gorillas with boxing gloves. Another weird thing was the legitimate and unexplained superhuman strength and endurance displayed by both Bisco and Pawu. This is something that isn't even like everyday for this anime world either. Nobody seemed to have any issues with the random mecha animals being used for battle. No commentary from any characters on that oddity, but the superhuman strength is something that every character commented on and was shocked by. In the very first episode, Bisco deadlifts over his head one of the random hippo tanks and chucks it like a boulder. Near the last episode, Pawu lifts an elephant over her head. None of this is explained within the context of the show, and the characters are flabbergasted by this monster's strength, but it's never explained. Just there. Except the random super strength, bigot. There's the whole using mushrooms as a form of tactical combat thing, of course. That's pretty fucking weird itself. I think some of the strangest stuff, though, was the stuff that the people of this world actually accepted as just a part of life. The mecha animals are one. The other one was that, and I believe I mentioned this in the breakdown, Japan seemed to be pretty much a vast wasteland. Mostly desert with some few other environments, due to the whole apocalyptic thing happening in the past. What was weird about that, though, is that there didn't seem to be an ocean because the desert itself was the ocean. Like, nearly every form of life that the characters encountered throughout the show was some form of marine life that was using the desert sands, and or the air, as the ocean. You get my drift? Like, it was pretty much all monstrous forms of sea life. You have the giant snails fused with airplanes, the giant shrimp, the giant crab, giant carnivorous pufferfish that fly through the air and eat anything in their path. That sort of thing. The intro itself was full of this kind of thing too. Again, with none of this being explained within the context of the show. Just except the mutant desert fish bigot. Now, I'm not saying any of the weirdness is bad. Not at all. I'm simply illustrating the weirdness for what it is. Weird. The weirdness didn't detract from the story, it served to create a really weird setting for sure, but the story was still pretty basic and tight. It was never slow, it always moved at a good clip, and kept me interested and entertained the whole time. It was good, if a bit predictable near the end there. I mean, you pretty much know what's going to happen there at the end. I'm not going to give it away, of course, but you'll know what I'm talking about when you get there. Now, I think that just simply from a storytelling standpoint, the only thing I could complain about is that while the story did move at a good pace, it was a little too fast. Like, this show was based off of a light novel, and you can definitely tell where they pared down some of the story for the sake of getting the whole thing out in one go. Like, Milo randomly goes from a kind of pacifistic doctor to at the very least being an amateur mushroom keeper type fighter. It doesn't really show Bisco training him either. It's just one episode he's more of a drag on Bisco when it comes to fighting, and the next episode he's using a bow to trap their dinner. It just came out of left field. So you could tell that they'd cut down on some of Bisco and Milo's journey at that point. Again, though, it didn't really detract from the story or the enjoyment that I got from watching this anime. It was just something that was very noticeable. All in all, I'd give this one a good 7 or 8 out of 10. It wasn't the greatest anime I've ever seen, and the weirdness and the story itself, as well as the characters and the comedic elements, kept me entertained for the entire 12 episodes. It wasn't bad at all. Well, if you watched this anime, tell me what you thought in that handy section down below. While you're down there, keep an eye out for land sharks. I didn't see any in this anime, but that doesn't mean they didn't exist. If you liked this review and you want to see more of them, you can join the Big Green Horde and get all of them all the time by crushing those like and subscribe buttons, like a goblin. If you made it through this video, as always you get a smelly goblin hug and my kind regards. I'll see you all, hopefully Monday, with something to do with pop culture. See you then. Lates.